All right, so looking at standard deviation, there's a couple of things we need to review about it. A, how to find it. We'll talk about also, I'll refresh your memory on how to do it on your graphing calculator, if you want to do it that way as well. Okay. So for this first one, the numbers of regular season wins for 10 football teams in a given season are given below. Determine the range, mean, variance, and standard deviation of the population data set. So key thing here is we're looking at population. And remember, there's a difference between sample and population when we find the standard deviation and the variance. Okay, so when we're looking at sample, we're going to do for the standard deviation, remember that's the square root of your variance, and that's the wrong symbols. How about S equals the square root of S squared, and this is going to be the square root of the summation of x minus x bar squared over n minus 1. And then for the population, we're doing sigma, square root of sigma squared for the variance. And then here, instead of dividing by n minus 1, we're just dividing by n. Okay. So that's the key differences there. So first thing, let's review range. How do you find the range?
Biggest number minus smallest.
All right, so max minus min. So here we're going to do our max would be 15 minus our minimum of 2, and that gives us 13. Mean, we reviewed this yesterday, or I guess 2 days ago. Are we going to be using x bar or mu for this one? Since we're finding population. Anyone remember? Mu. So mu equals. So if you add all these up, you're going to get 75. Divide by the 10 numbers that there are. So our mean is 7.5. And then for our variance, we're going to have to use a table. Okay. So I'm going to write out the top parts of the table just in case you don't have a graphing calculator so you remember what we're doing. So for your X, you're going to be listing out all of your data entries. Okay, so that would continue. And then you're going to do X minus mu, so your mean. And a lot of you were just squaring it all in the same column, and that's perfectly fine. That saves time. And then for this one, we can just add these up. Okay. Once you find that summation, then I'm just going to write a number because I didn't calculate that part. You'll take that number, so the variance, weigh that number, divided by, since we're doing population, it'll be 10. Okay. And then to find the standard deviation, we're going to do square root. And remember, we find the square root of the unrounded number. Okay. So you can use the table. You can also use Google Sheets. That's what we did a couple times first quarter. The other way we're going to do it quite a bit this semester is going to be using your graphing calculator. Okay, so let's review those steps. So you're going to go to Stat. And then you're going to hit Enter. So that way you can edit your list. Okay. So then you're going to enter each value. in the first column. Okay. You don't need to delete what's in your first column. You can just type over it. It'll delete as you go. Okay. If you want to clear out that list before you start, you can do up arrow to where it says L1 and then hit clear and enter. And it will delete everything that's there for you. Don't hit delete when you have that L1 because otherwise the whole list will get deleted and you won't see L1 anymore. Okay. All right, so after you've put all of that in, we're going to do second quit. Then we're going to go back to stat. And then we're going to right arrow over to calc. And then the easiest way is just to keep hitting enter until you see the calculations. Okay. Okay, so I don't know if you can see my screen at all, but remember this shows you your list of everything. Okay, X bar is your mean, and then you can scroll down to find your, so with this SX is the sample standard deviation. Okay, and then sigma X is your population standard deviation. Okay. So then to find your variance, you'll have to square that number. Okay. If you don't have a graphing calculator, the nice thing is you'll be back in the building next week, so you can borrow one of mine during class. Okay. But start getting used to finding the standard deviation and the mean in your graphing calculator because it will make a lot of what we do for the next couple of units easier. Okay. Questions about that? Okay. Second example. So if we don't have a list of numbers, but instead we have a frequency distribution. This changes a little bit. It's going to be more like what we did the other day. And for some reason, the pie chart that came with this did not copy over in my notes. So let me find that document. Okay, so here we're going to be using the same method we did yesterday when we were finding our mean of a frequency distribution. So for this, our X values, remember we use midpoints. So that way we can calculate and make assumptions for the whole data set. And if it's not here, we're just going to make up numbers. There it is. Okay, so the one you have on your homework today, it's going to give you a pie chart with the frequencies, and it's going to already have this table set up for you. You're going to be filling in the frequency column. Okay, so it's going to say 0 to 4 hours, and we're going to say 4, 14, 22, 16, 17, 10, and 7. Okay. All right. So then we're going to go through and do the same thing we've been doing. So instead of finding the class or using the class to find that distribution, we want to find our midpoint. Okay, so remember we're adding the lower and the upper together, divide by 2. So 0 plus 4 divided by 2 is 2. Okay. And then we can go up by the class width. And then in the problem, it tells you to use 32 as the midpoint for 30 plus hours. Okay, so make sure you're reading that description. Okay. So first thing we have to do is find our mean. So to do that, remember we do x times f. So 2 times 4 is 8, 14 times 7. I'm not going to do that in my head. We get 98. 12 times 22, we get 264. 17 times 16, 272. 22 times 17, 374. 270. And then 32 times 7 is 224. Okay. And then we're going to do, oh, first we need to actually find the mean. So now add these all up. You get 1510. And then to find that mean, I believe this was a sample. Yep, sample. So we're going to have x bar equals 1510. And then to find what we need to divide by, remember we need to find our total frequency or our n. Which is 90. So 1510 divided by 90 gives us 16.7 repeating, which means our mean would be 16.8. Okay. So now back up to our table. We're going to take our x value minus our mean, square it, and then we also need to multiply it by that frequency. Okay. That multiplying by the frequency part is what most of us are missing when we're finding the standard deviation of frequency distribution. Okay. So be careful to include that multiplying. Okay. So if we do this for the first one, we have 2 minus 16.8 squared times 4, 876.16. Okay. Unfortunately, there isn't a way to easily calculate this in or on your graphing calculator. There's a way to do it using the list. And I'll show you guys how to do that when you guys are in person. Okay, just because then I can plan ahead and steal Mr. Eccles' document camera. Okay. So you would continue finding this column and then add them all up. And that would give you your sum of your squares. So then your sample variance would be that sum divided by here. So remember, since we're doing sample, we're going to divide by n minus 1, which would be 89. And then to find the sample standard deviation, you're going to take the square root of whatever you get here. Okay. Questions? Let me stop recording.